The Colts made a chain reaction of big decisions over the last week. I'm here, Sigmund Bloom, Bob Harris, football guys. That chain reaction, Bob, is it going to generate power and light for the Colts that look like they were on their way to the playoffs with Daniel Jones, or will it be a meltdown as the Colts make yet another mistake at quarterback?
Well, I mean, that's going to be what determines all this, right? Like, I think it's fair to say we're moving on from Michael Pittman. I think it's reasonable. I think that's reasonable, especially giving Alec Pierce the money that they gave him. What is it? 4 years, $116 million.
Yeah.
They believe he's a wide receiver one. Michael Pittman, who we all thought was going to be that, has never proven to be that. Never demanded that kind of workload. And like, we still have something to see if Pierce could do that either. But much of that's going to depend on the health of Daniel Jones. And is Daniel Jones that we see this coming season when he's back the same Daniel Jones that led this offense to 28 plus points a game while he was at the helm? It was phenomenal. Jonathan Taylor's numbers soared. Alec Pierce's numbers were solid. By the way, on Pierce, coming off his best season as a pro, got over 1,000 yards, one of only, I think, 3 players to do that since 2000 on fewer than 90 targets. So super efficient. Impressive efforts. He's always been the deep threat guy, but we talk about our smart friends at Football Guys. Matt Waldman is one of them. And I talked to Matt about him. He thought Pierce could develop into a player closer in style to Justin Jefferson than people would have thought when he studied him as a rookie. Both are skilled vertical weapons through their hand speed, timing, and toughness at the catch point. And they can also deliver on the timing routes. And I think we started to see that more, that Pierce going kind of from the one trick speed threat pony to a more diversified route tree and being a more effective weapon. And talking to some of the beat writers, James Boyd from The Athletic in particular really highlighted this for me last summer, that Pierce was the guy to watch. He's clearly the best receiver on the team. And I think now the money bears that out. But the question is does the offense work? I think they have all the pieces in place, including Tyler Warren. I think we'll see what Josh Downs can do here as well. And they'll need a real wide receiver too. Maybe that's someone on the roster or someone they have to draft. But it all hinges on one thing, and that is Daniel Jones being the guy we saw early last year.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about this is the Sam Darnold story, right? I mean, as it impacts this. In fact, Sam Darnold is a player that maybe the Colts could have considered last year, right? Without a doubt. And Daniel Jones was in Minnesota also for a brief second, but that reset can be all you need with confidence and with an idea of putting something behind you, the failed first round picks. So we would have said last year after Seattle signed Sam Darnold, well, he was good, but the last couple of games seemed like he got figured out, right? There's a reason Sam Darnold wasn't considered a franchise quarterback.
Right.
And while he looked good in a system, once teams figured out how to isolate his fatal flaw and make the game and the success of the offense hinge on his fatal flaw, he was unmasked. Oh, by the way, Seattle, whose offensive line was not exactly the best at pass protecting, probably not the best team to expose a quarterback like Sam Darnold. Now, in the case of Daniel Jones, we don't have the change in environment, but we do have, I think the Steelers game was probably the game. I mean, his stats over the last few games were just horrendous. The number of turnovers. And I think that the narrative on the Steelers was to take away his first read. Just take away his first read. And then you get back to the Daniel Jones that cost Brian Dable his job, not Joe Shane though. You get back to the Daniel Jones that made a franchise made a decision that they rue to this day. Well, then they got Jackson Dart, so maybe not to this day. But the point being that again, like we could say, well, the Colts. Because here's a funny thing, not to Colts fans. I was looking at they had the list of the one and done, the highest one and done cap hits. I don't even remember the player off the top of my head, the reason that it came up. But 2 of the biggest one and done cap hits, that is a big cap hit, has to have a player play for your team for 1 year. Was Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz for the Colts.
Oh man, yeah. Well, that was. It's funny because just looking at Alec Pierce, one of the things that he talked about just last week wanting to leave was playing with 9 different quarterbacks in his brief time with the club, and he has forged a relationship with Daniel Jones that he really appreciates. So like we'll see what happens here. I want to believe in Daniel Jones. I mean, from a fantasy perspective, I have believed in Daniel Jones all along because he's a willing runner. He can't always run all the way to the goal line, but sometimes he has a stumble there along the way. But no, he's a willing runner, capable runner. And I thought the way he ran this offense, and maybe we should give, Shane Steichen some of the credit that he probably earned with his work with Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts, and that maybe the kind of the shine had come off a little bit with the shortcomings with Anthony Richardson, or Anthony Richardson's shortcomings in emerging as the weapon that they clearly drafted him to be. And maybe now we're back to the more realistic Shane Steichen piece that he can get the most out of.
Yeah, I think that's important, because one of the fun things about hyper obsessing about the NFL, like those of us, I mean, if you're here, it's March and you're listening to us two guys talking about football in March, then you might hyper obsess about it too. Is that when we learn stuff, Bob, sometimes it changed what we already learned. Like we'll learn something new and say, oh, okay, now I can look back and I should attribute more of that outcome, the reason for that outcome. In this case, it's, well, Anthony Richardson, at least in Shane Steichen's abilities, was not a quarterback that he could get something out of. We'll see. I guess Cleveland, that's probably the team that's been thrown out there most with Anthony Richardson. Yes. Will there be a second team that can get more? But if Daniel Jones is fine again, then it sure does look like just give him something to work with at quarterback, and it will be okay. And I agree with you, rooting for him. Real quick on the Alec Pierce, does it surprise? I mean, do you think this is a massive overpay? Is it something that, now Alec Pierce is a $30 million receiver? It's more like, no, I get it. I get why they would pay him that much.
I get why they are paying him that much, because that's how much he was going to cost. So other teams were going to be willing to pay that. Like the market bear, creates the price. But I do think that watching him play, I mean, just the numbers have been great. He led the league in yards per catch the last couple of years, and again started showing more on a larger basis what he could do. He only had one drop last year too, a single drop pass last year. So 36% of his passes were for 20 yards or longer last year. Like if he can continue at a pace like that with a greater workload, I don't know what kind of numbers we might get. And I mean, I guess that's what we're trying to do here is we're going to project that, hey, he is going to get more targets than he got last year. Look what he did with last year's targets. I mean, it's pretty simple, elementary math to figure out what our expectations might be for him. And I don't think they're wrong. I think he's a better player than he'd been given credit for. We didn't all, but many people wrote him off as a one-trick pony, right? Oh, he's fast, but that's all he does. Well, no, that's not all he does.
Yeah, he's not just a ball guy that goes up and wins jump balls. And what we have to keep in mind is, first of all, like you said, what we should project, because teams don't pay for past production. Teams aren't like, like here's a tip on top of the bill for your great service. Teams are paying what they think they're going to get. They're paying for what they expect to get. And Alec Pierce, let's keep this in mind. Alec Pierce, in addition, we all know that chunk plays, your 10, 15, 20 plus yard plays. I mean, I think the NFL and the analytics and everything else is zeroing in on like that is on offense. If you can't do that, woe is you. So number one, we know he provides the most valuable kind of play, but he's also a great blocker. Jonathan Taylor busting off them long touchdown runs. Go watch Alec Pierce on those runs.
Right.
Go watch Alec Pierce.
Yes.
And his ability to win downfield, especially if you have a cornerback that you don't trust, makes teams stay in too high safeties. More Jonathan Taylor runs. Right,
exactly. Well, like we saw when all those pieces were in place last year, like Jonathan Taylor tailed off late last season. Why? Because not all those pieces were in place. Right. Pretty clear cut. I mean, you have to have a quarterback, but when it was all working, and again, I want to just not overlook the Shane Steichen aspect of this, but the synergy there is real. And you're right. I mean, that opened things up. The 3 touchdown games, the huge 200-yard rushing outputs, all those things, yes, kudos to you, Jonathan Taylor, for being a huge breakaway threat. Kudos also to this offense for having the pieces in place to allow him to be what he can be.
Yeah. And so if you see folks out there saying, look at his career stats, or look at his production last year, how does that justify that salary? Know that number one, it's the production he's going to create. And number two, a lot of the things Alec Pierce does do not show up in his stats,
Right.
but they show up in the outcomes for the team. Really quick, because I'm an neurotic Steelers fan, so I'm not to be trusted. The Steelers go in and swoop in and they're like, "Oh, you don't want to spend $50 million on 2 wide receivers? Let us do it."
I can't disabuse you of the direction you're headed on this. It doesn't it doesn't seem like the greatest move. These are both players. The 2 receivers they have are guys that probably fell short of expectations in their previous stops, and that's why they were allowed to move on. Now, can you reclaim them? Like we're going to expect more passing volume in this offense with Mike McCarthy there for sure, and maybe they're anticipating that and they're putting the pieces in place to do that. But neither of these guys are the kind of field stretching weapons that are going to like Alec Pierce represents, but also that it's going to help set them apart. Maybe they feel like they have that in an ancillary piece, like a Calvin Austin guy that can, they can use to threaten defenses deep or whatever. But I think that, to me right now, that's the missing ingredient. They don't have that guy that, neither of those guys are true alphas. And that's might be a problem for them.
How about somebody who can separate against man coverage?
Sure, that would help.
Just anybody, somebody. I mean, that's the thing. Michael Pittman doesn't exactly plug a hole in this offense. Maybe he can catch back shoulder passes from Aaron Rodgers. This is a team stuck in short-term thinking at a moment when bills are going to come due for short-term thinking. Well, long-term thinking, always, we're about making friends for life at Football Guys. And we gather around fantasy football and football, but really, we love being a part of your life. We love that you make Football Guys part of your life, and you're part of our life. Even in March, even with football games 6 months away before we're going to set our lineups, we're thinking about this stuff. And if you're hanging out with us, or maybe you're coming in a few weeks after because you have a life, like Cecil says, you have a life we don't.
How's that happen?
Yeah, no, it is. And really, I joke because we get a charmed life to get to do something that for us is play as a job. And it's because of you all out there and the wonderful fine taste you have in your connoisseurs of fantasy football advice, footballguys.com. Folks, we don't say bye. We say see you later.